So did Pete Rose cork his bats? I'll let you know what I think. Stay tuned. Philadelphia Baseball History presents... Did Pete Rose cork his bat? Pete Rose. It's an understatement to say that Pete Rose is a controversial figure. You think? So a new controversy has come out. Former member of the Expos groundskeeping staff, Joe Jammer, has alleged that Pete Rose used to cork his bats. Jammer says that Pete knew better than to coordinate this with the equipment manager for the Expos. So instead, he went to Brian Greenberg, who was the equipment manager for the Visitors. According to Jammer, Greenberg showed him the machine that he used to cork Pete's bats, and he claimed that Rose had been corking his bats for 20 years. Now, since I'm a trained lawyer, I feel obligated to come out and tell you, this is all hearsay. It wouldn't be admissible in a court of law. Plus, these allegations are now 35 years old. We have no way of proving them. Even if Greenberg would have come forward, and it's my understanding that he refuses to either confirm or deny Jammer's story, I'm not sure everybody would accept that as proof that Rose did anything. But let's talk about Pete Rose for a second. There are basically three schools of thought on Pete Rose. The first school of thought are those die-hard Pete Rose fans. I used to be one of these. They point to his accomplishments. He's the record for the most hits in Major League Baseball. He was a great competitor, and so he should be in the Hall of Fame. This school of thought acknowledges that Pete Rose did gamble on baseball, but they say it's been long enough. He's been punished, which included the jail sentence, by the way, for tax evasion. And now we should move on and give Pete a plaque in the Hall of Fame. And then there are those people who really hate Pete Rose. He's a jerk. He broke the rules. He broke baseball's most sacred rule, and that is don't gamble on games. There's no way he deserves the honor of being in the Hall of Fame, and this is just further proof. If you go back to, 2016, when Ichiro Suzuki passed Pete Rose in terms of total career hits, mind you, that was combining his hits both in Major League Baseball and the Japanese League. And almost everybody will confess that the Japanese League isn't the same quality as Major League Baseball. This, by the way, is not meant to detract from Ichiro's career. I love Ichiro. I think he was a fabulous hitter. He seemed humble and really loved the fans. So by no means do I wish Ichiro any ill. Nonetheless, in 2016, there were a lot of people who wanted to topple Pete Rose out of his throne of being the hit king and put Suzuki there, as if they wanted to erase Pete Rose's accomplishments from baseball history. And then there's the third school of thought, which is pretty much right down the middle. These are people who recognize that Pete Rose had an incredible career. Many of them will tell you that, yeah, eventually Pete Rose deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. They'll acknowledge that Pete Rose is, well, kind of a jerk. And because of that, he doesn't deserve Hall of Fame induction while he's alive. The last time I visited Cooperstown, which was about 2016, the Hall of Fame was trying to toe the line right down the middle as well. Sure, Pete doesn't have a plaque in the Hall, but he was well represented in the Hall of Fame's museum. I saw an exhibit on the 1980 Phillies. Pete Rose's jersey was prominently displayed in that case. The Hall of Fame has a video exhibit that celebrates when Pete Rose passed Ty Cobb's record. To its credit, the Hall of Fame doesn't shy from this controversy. But let's get back to the allegations. You see, I used to support having Pete Rose being inducted in the Hall of Fame. Back in 2016, I laid a lot of hints for my kids. They and the grandparents went out and got me a Pete Rose jersey for Father's Day. I loved it. In 2017, I was really looking forward to having Pete inducted into the Phillies Wall of Fame. I bought my ticket early in the season. To me, Pete Rose was a boyhood hero. I always considered him at least partially responsible for motivating that team that in the end of the 1970s was a really good team, but just couldn't get over the playoff hump. I used to believe that the whole banning of Pete Rose from baseball was just a personal vendetta by Bart Giamatti. But then August of 2017 rolled around. Pete Rose was suing Dowd, the lawyer who had done the investigation for Major League Baseball on his gambling. Dowd had appeared on a radio in 2015 and claimed that Rose was guilty of statutory rape. Rose filed a defamation case. In August of 2017, an affidavit from that case leaked. The affidavit was from a woman who was 14 or 15 back in the 1970s when she started to have a sexual relationship with Pete Rose. So what was Rose's response? Well, she was 16. That's legal in Ohio. Now, I know I've said this before. It might be because I'm a father of a teenage daughter, but I have a really hard time forgiving a 34-year-old man who is married and a father who has sexual relations with a girl who hasn't graduated high school. I really don't care what the age of consent was in Ohio, or that technically it wasn't statutory rape, or at least according to Rose's point of view. And I think I was in denial for about a week. I still wanted the ceremony to go forward, but then it hit me. This guy's a jerk and really doesn't deserve the honor. It still hasn't been shown to my satisfaction that Rose bet against himself or the Reds when he was gambling on baseball. If he was doing that, then I would say, yeah, his gambling was affecting the integrity of the sport. But I think betting for the Reds, it's just consistent with Pete Rose's hyper-competitive attitude. Remember, this is the guy who's been accused of causing home plate collisions unnecessarily in order to make sure he scored a run. Ray Fosse in the 1970 All-Star Game, Bruce Bochy in the 1980 NLCS. Whether you believe that was right or not, it shows he's a competitive person. So these allegations of back corking, I do find them a little easier to believe. Let's start off by dispelling a misconception. People think back corking is for the purpose of hitting more home runs, driving the ball farther. It's called the trampoline effect. It's what you see in aluminum bats. The fact that the bat is hollow with aluminum bats, or the inner material is less dense, as is the case with cork bats. The idea is that the more dense outer material first contracts when it hits the ball and then expands, thereby pushing the ball further. There's only one problem with this theory. Research has been done, and at least with respect to cork bats, it's not true. Cork bats don't propel the ball farther. Okay, well then you cork a bat so you have greater bat speed, and that greater bat speed propels the ball farther, right? Well, that's not really true either. How far a ball will travel off a bat is a function of numerous factors. Bat speed is one of them. The other is the mass of the object that's hitting the ball. Think, for example, you can have some really fat guys who can hit long home runs in softball. And that's because the mass of the object hitting the ball is pretty big. So there's a trade-off when you have cork bats. Yes, you get the faster bat speed, but you have the lower mass. So as far as propelling the ball further, it's a wash. So what's the advantage of cork bats then? Turns out that bat speed does give you an advantage, and in particular, an advantage for singles hitters. If you can swing the bat faster, then you've got an extra fraction of a second from the time that the ball leaves the pitcher's hand till you decide to hit the ball. And that extra fraction of a second can give you more of an opportunity to control where the ball is going to land. So you know the saying, hit 'em where they ain't. If you can get a ground ball between the third baseman and the shortstop, you've got to hit. And that is exactly the kind of player that Pete Rose was. Plus, you could argue that Pete was known for bending the rules. Take Game 1 of the 1980 World Series. Pete Rose comes up to bat as a left-hander. A breaking ball comes inside, and at least to the 9-year-old me, it looked like Pete leaned his knee into the ball. He was awarded a base by being hit by a pitch. But if the umpire had concluded that he'd leaned into the pitch, he wouldn't have gotten awarded the base. I'm going to have in the description box below a link to the video of Game 1 of the 1980 World Series so you can see for yourself. Having looked back on it, I can't say it's clear-cut. But the point simply being that given Pete Rose's hyper-competitiveness and his willingness to do whatever it takes to get that extra hit, to steal that extra base, to score that extra run, which arguably meant that he was willing to bend the rules here and there, well, that would be consistent with the allegation that he corked his bat. I think the truth is we'll never know for sure, but it is a further stain on Rose's legacy, and something that's going to make it less likely that he's ever inducted into the Hall of Fame, even posthumously. So let me know your thoughts. Tell me in the comments below. Now be civil. Arguments over Pete Rose can bring out the worst in people. No name calling, and be polite. And thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com. The link is in the description box. We have t-shirts, hoodies, tote bags, mugs, and more with our designs in our merch store. Please visit the merch store at the link in the description box.
So I'm fighting cancer and I'm also disabled. If you feel generous enough to make a small one-time donation, you can do so through PayPal. I'll have instructions in the description below. A non-tax deductible donation will go to a special needs trust set up for my benefit that will help pay my expenses.
Please consider subscribing to our channel. Leave a comment if you have any ideas for future videos. Give us a like and click the bell button if you would like to receive notification when we publish videos in the future.